Hey you guys, what's up and welcome to the Prime Vanguard channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my Zorga deck profile post A Brush with Legends. Now, being a Stoicheia main such as myself, Zorga and Magnolia are two decks that I really have enjoyed playing throughout the entire format and the beginning of the game. Since the introduction, I've been more swayed towards playing Magnolia than I really have towards Zorga. Not that I don't enjoy the playstyle, but I just prefer Magnolia and his playstyle for this current format, and just my own personal playstyle fitting better with the deck for Overdress. But I do have to add on to this that in this format, I'm always very honest about my deck profiles and what I do and what I play. And I will say that before I hop into this deck profile, I'll admit that personally, I'm not too very fluent with Zorga. Zorga is a deck that I play here on the occasion, and this deck was mainly inspired by a Japanese deck list I found online that I've been playing with, and I haven't really found too many inconsistencies or things that I personally want to change to make the deck list fit my playstyle any better than what the deck is already built to be based off whoever this person built the deck to do. In the future, I might potentially make more changes to the deck or anything, or maybe build the whole deck from scratch and go from there. But for now, this deck profile that I'm going to showcase to you today is one that is inspired off a Japanese player deck list that I really do enjoy playing, and I will explain the cards as best as I possibly can and the reasons why I'm keeping the cards and the ratios at the levels that I am. That's just my little disclaimer out the way before somebody comes at me for net decking and stuff. I'm not a net decker. Every deck that I make is always original. It's always play tested out. I always start from scratch. I have no problem taking a few L's. That's just how you get better. Without further ado, you guys, let's go ahead and hop right into this deck profile and get started. All right, you guys, so to go ahead and get started off with this deck profile, I'm going to go ahead and show the ride chain for the deck first. My grade 0 is Dream Nibbling, Rancor Chain, Black Tears Husk Dragon, and obviously Mysterious Rain Spiritualist Zorga. This is the only ride chain for the Zorga deck out there, and I don't see any other potential changes you can make for this deck at all when it comes to the ride chain. Very consistent, helps you go through your deck faster, recycle order card for later, or print order card in your drop zone for later so that you can use it for your alchemagic abilities in the future. Moving on to the main deck, I played 3 copies of Mysterious Spiritualist Rain Zorga. Mysterious Spiritualist Rain Zorga is an amazing card. This card's ability, and with the introduction of the new order cards in this set, has made this deck so much more faster and a lot more consistent. Zorga being able to revive a unit consistently every single turn is extremely helpful, as well as maintaining a board can be troublesome with some of the cards you do play in the deck and some of the matchups that you will face against. This card also allowing you to reuse the order cards multiple times in a turn does help the deck go a lot faster, as if order cards for every deck were allowed to be played at least 2 times a turn, I do believe that order cards would see more play, but this deck goes ahead and takes advantage of that. And the best part about that is that allows you to add more variety and more abilities and skills to use throughout your turn to take advantage and play a more controlled play style against your opponent. Persona Riding does help this deck a lot, because one of the main weaknesses of Zorga that I found is that offensively speaking, this deck isn't like amazing when it comes to offense. There isn't anything too spectacular about its offensive plays. It's all very generic, just slapstick Vanguard, making my card stronger than your card and just relying on my order cards to control you while I try to do something to you. So Persona Riding definitely does help in the deck, and that's obviously why you want to max out any grade 3 that you play in an Overdress deck, because you want to be able to take advantage of that. But overall, I do enjoy playing Zorga. Moving on to my grade 2s, I'm playing 2 copies of Fleet Swallower. Now, Fleet Swallower is a new card introduced to us in this second set, and what this card allows us to do is when it attacks, if you perform Alchemagic this turn, he'll get 5k, and your opponent is forced to use 2 or more cards in their hand to guard with. So this is a card that I decided to add into the deck based off the list, because as I was stating earlier about Zorga, I noticed that there's not much offensive push. So I needed a card in the deck that could help with my offense turns. This way, I'm not just attacking my opponent and relying on my numbers to get through. With a card like Fleet Swallower and being able to be superior called from the drop zone because of Zorga's ability means that I always have a card in my drop zone or I can use later to create an offensive pressure turn. I like playing 2 copies of this card. Any more feels unnecessary, and I might even drop it down to 1, only because in the deck of Zorga, I max out another grade 2 that I'm going to show you, and I do go through my deck a lot faster, especially with the introduction of these newer order cards that help me go through my deck a lot faster. So the cards that I want to maximize and play test out with, I can do that now. But for now, I'm going to keep my deck at 2 Fleet Swallowers. For my last grade 2, I played 4 copies of Inheritance Maiden Hendrina. Inheritance Maiden Hendrina is a key piece and extremely essential to this deck. This card is your main engine card. It helps get cards in your drop zone. She helps you get back resources. She's also a very reliable rear guard that can be called. You can always count on this card to help you set up your drop zone for later so you can activate your Alchemagic abilities with Zorga and giving you variety, and it does help go through your deck a lot faster. So to keep your deck at this rate and be able to keep up with the speed need to make sure Zorga can play well, you do want to play 4 copies of this card so that this way you have the highest chance of seeing it so that you can go through your deck just a lot faster. Moving on to my grade 1s, I'm playing 4 copies of Rogue Headhunter. Rogue Headhunter for Zorga is honestly the MVP of the deck. His ability to reduce the cost of any of your Alchemagic cards for their counterblast abilities is extremely helpful. Honestly, it makes most of your plays in this deck free because a lot of your order cards don't go more than 1 counterblast, and that's what this card does. It's also a reliable call for the Zorga ability or any other ability that you're going to activate later because its ability is on place, meaning that you can play around your turn and pick the order cards you want to have the effect reduced of. This card also makes as a really good beat stick because of its continuous ability to get 5,000 power if you play an order of the turn, which is something that the deck will always do because you want to trigger Alchemagic every single turn. Overall, I do like playing 4 copies of this card. I have not found a reason to drop it. Zorga honestly got a lot of really good cards this set, and that's one of the hardest parts about building this deck is because the way that Zorga can play out now is you can go for a very consistent offensive play style, or you can go for the more consistent, slow, controlled play style and just get better over time with the cards you add to your drop zone. And Rogue Headhunter in either strategy is a good key card, but then it comes down to what is it that I want to make space for in the other cards that I want to play. And I just prefer this card over everything else just because it makes most of my cards free. For my next grade 1, I play 4 copies of Planar Prevent Dragon. This is the Stoicheia Sentinel. Okay, so those are all the main units for the deck, and now we're gonna go ahead and talk about our order cards. For my first set of order cards, I'm playing 2 copies of Regurgitation from the Underworld. This order card has to be my favorite. I really do like this card because it's essentially a free +2 to your board when you combine it with Rogue Headhunter. And the Soul Blast isn't even that detrimental because the deck can easily make Soul back with some of your resource management cards. Plus, this card also selectively pops a card on your board, which is actually extremely helpful because selective retiring right now in Overdress is somewhat of a big deal as there are key pieces that need to be on the board for certain decks to really function and do well. So having this card to selectively allow you to retire anything that your opponent has and then call something out from that is amazing. This is my favorite order out of the entire set. I even considered playing this in Magnolia, but I chose not to, and if you want to find that out, just wait till I drop that Magnolia deck profile. But overall, this is my favorite order, and I like playing it at 2, only because it can get clunky when you see it more than once or twice, and there's room for other order cards I need to make in the deck. For my next order card, I'm playing 3 copies of Grief, Despair, and Rejection. This order card is one of the main offensive orders for the deck. It's how a lot of your units are going to get powered up and how they're going to be able to offensively push through the turn. As I stated before, in this deck, a lot of the cards that you play are more resource management based. None of them really gained power before in the old Zorga build compared to this one, with cards like Fleet Swallower and Headhunter, who can help you push offensively on your turns. And you're going to need the extra power to do that because you won't be able to Persona Ride all the time. Plus, with Rogue Headhunter, this card essentially becomes free if you played one order first and then played this as the first one and another order after that. So this card is just a free 10k to 3 of your units as long as you have Zorga, but you need Alchemagic to do that. So therefore, it's just a free big booster to the board. This is, all the orders in this deck are, I'm just going to say now, are a bit of a flex to me. I feel like there's so many good order cards for Stoicheia now that the ratios aren't as significant, especially considering the fact that the deck can go a lot faster through its cards than I thought it could prior. So if you wanted to get rid of one of these to play another order or add another main monster card to the deck, I have no problem with that whatsoever. For my next order card, I'm playing 2 copies of Cursed Souls of Squirming in Agony. I still like this order. I know that some decks have dropped this order or at least playing it at a minimum of 1. I enjoy this card because it's another way of going through your deck a lot faster, even though the Soul Blast cost is a little bit heavy. And if you combine it with Alchemagic, it's another power-up card for your units. This helps build up your board, go through your deck, build up your drop zone, as well as power up the units that you have in play to make a more offensive turn, which, as we've been talking about this entire deck profile, is extremely important to the Zorga playstyle. That's why I'm still playing this card at 2. I think that this is one of the flexible order cards in the deck that, again, I just can choose not to play. But for now, I haven't had any problems with it. I think that 2 is perfect. I might even drop it down to 1 myself. For my next order card, I'm playing 3 copies of Spiritual Body Condensation. Now, Spiritual Body Condensation is another revival order card, and I'm playing this card simply because you can activate it earlier in the game if you wanted to push for more cards, or if you guarded with Hendrina earlier, you saw Hendrina that you mulled out, you can use Spiritual Body Condensation to get another one and keep building up your drop zone. Because this is a grade 1 order card, that means that you can activate it earlier, so obviously that's the main reason why I'm playing it as it is. I think that I would maybe drop one of these for something else and just keep it at 2, because you already have 3 cards that get you bored and help you generate more field advantage and call cards. And eventually speaking, this card becomes clunky later on if it's not already in the drop zone, because you want to play other cards in the deck, or you want to be very picky about the Alchemagic cards you're going to play, because you're only going to be able to do 2 order cards a turn. So Spiritual Body Condensation is still a good card for your early game rush, but I don't know about the ratio so far. I'm playing 2 copies of Nectar of Sensationalism. This card is just to help with your offensive push just a little bit more. This deck has no problem whatsoever getting to the 15 card drop zone requirement for the critical. This deck is basically the grand blue of Overdress, so that's not a problem whatsoever at all. And the extra critical does come in handy sometimes, because you could have a really fat column for a card, or maybe you have a Fleet Swallower and you just want to apply the extra critical pressure to make sure that your opponent really does guard that attack and not let that one through when attacking with it. This card really just helps push the offensive pressure of the deck. But I will say that this is another order that I might take 1 copy of it out of and play something else, because you're only going to want to see like once or twice. And that one time that you do use it, you're probably going to kill your opponent, and this is just to help push with that. So therefore, I don't know about the ratio of this card just yet. For my last order card, I'm playing 1 copy of Overcoming the Unnatural Death. So obviously, playing an Alchemagic deck, a lot of our Alchemagic cards are going to end up being bound. So having a card that can recycle those back to our hand is extremely helpful. This is just a resource management tool for Alchemagic specifically, because you just want to get those bind cards back to your hand later to add more for resources, or just to be selective and reuse the ones that you've already used up before, or need specifically in that time that have already been bound that you've used more than twice. Other than that, it's just free resource management for the deck. Moving on to the triggers for the deck, I'm playing 1 copy of the Stoicheia Overtrigger because it's the best Overtrigger. Next up, I play 3 copies of Fiend's Heiress. This deck plays a lot of order cards, as you've seen, and order cards don't really have any shield, so you need to play this card in the deck. I might even bump this card up to 1 simply because the shield value is something that you are going to be missing from Zorga, because you might have a handful of orders, and over time while you're going through your ride deck to get more cards, you might take a lot of damage in the early game because your opponent's going to know that you have a lot of order cards either in your hand that aren't in the drop zone yet. So there have been times that I have been susceptible to really hardcore early game rush, and that's not fun at all. So you might want to play 1 more copy of this card, but for now I'm just playing 3 because I personally just know how to work my way around being rushed out. And then I play 8 critical. I play 4 copies of Abyss Temptation, 4 copies of the Sylvan Horn Beast Jackalope, and 4 copies of Elegy Pixy. All right, you guys, so that is it for the Zorga deck profile. Tell me what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you really enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell on my channel so you guys are notified about all my uploaded posts. And I've got a few more deck profiles coming my way, so stay tuned for that. And if your friend's thinking about building a Zorga deck profile, go ahead and share this video with them. Give them a little template to work with so that they can build their own. But that's all for today, guys. Peace.